So Mike, in years past we came up, saw you do the presentation about Kent State. You were there, you were a big activist at the time. And then you, in our walk up here, you were telling me that there was a big show on TV last night about Kent State. What's your reaction?
Well, PBS has been running this supposed history of Vietnam, which has some very good things in it, but which is largely, of course, designed to whitewash a lot of the actions of the government and to justify what the U.S. government is doing today around the world. And last night there was the show last night was an hour-long show that focused on the massacres at Kent State. And not unexpectedly, it was historically inaccurate and attempted to portray kind of as Nixon as this brilliant but flawed statesman and who made an error of misjudgment. And the students were idealistic but misguided in how they protested. And, you know, again, it's this attempt to make history this, this balanced view, which is really just a way of covering up what happened. What happened, and it's been 45 years since the massacre. What happened was a brutal massacre of students ordered at the highest levels of government in order to turn around what was a quickly spreading national student strike against the U.S. invasion of Cambodia and the expansion of the war in Southeast Asia. And what Nixon and Governor Rhodes of Ohio and others hoped to do was that by shooting some students down, they thought they would turn the tide and that people would be afraid and they would go home. And as so often happens with those who have the arrogance of power, they sadly misjudged this. In fact, the massacre at Kent and then the massacre at Jackson State 10 days later added fuel to the fire. The student strike spread. It was the largest political demonstration in the history of this country. It remains a very proud event for all working people of this country. And it was really the beginning of the end of the war in Southeast Asia as we were able to force the troops out. I'm sorry.
Okay. Adds the authenticity of things. Yes, we are really here, and it's live.
That was Nixon. He objected.
Yeah, I mean, you really think it came? I mean, I couldn't understand it goes up to Rhodes and the governor and all that, but it went even further, all the way up to the White House?
Well, we know that there were calls between the White House and Governor Rhodes. What was said exactly, we don't know. And we know that, you know, Rockefeller had similar calls with the White House before Attica. You know, they function in a certain way, and they don't just do these things. You know, the idea that it's just a group of guardsmen who decided to do this or just is silly. These decisions are made at the highest levels of government, and you know, whether it was Nixon directly or indirectly isn't really the point. Nixon had come out a few days before and called the students bums. Governor Rhodes had come to the campus and attacked SDS and the Student Mobilization Committee against the war in Vietnam. He said, we're going to eradicate the problem, we're not going to treat the symptoms. It was a call for the shootings that laid the political framework for the shootings. They wanted to shoot some students because they thought it would be the end of the movement. And, you know, and in much, they make a science of turning around the legitimate protests of working people. We see it happening in Baltimore today. They call in the National Guard. Now, are they likely to shoot people? Not necessarily, although that danger, that very real danger exists, that the National Guard could be used to shoot protesters. But what it is designed to do is to intimidate people so that they won't fight against police violence, that they'll be intimidated so they'll go home. And as always, it's the same arrogance of power. They think somehow that our fight for justice is going to be deterred by shoving some guns in our face, and that is not going to happen.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you.